Just down here at Gorey's Market House, where work is soon to begin on a £7 million investment. So I'm hoping the facade on the outside says the same, and I'm very much hoping the inside changes, because it's not in great particular order at the moment. So okay.
Works won't be starting probably until the end of this year or beginning of next year. In the meantime, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of beauty about them, that they involve the community, that the community can engage. And this is what the new European Bauhaus is all about. It's all about talking to people, finding out what people is. For years and years, we've been in a situation where local authorities and government and what have you have put in social infrastructure. We've done a little bit of consultation because we like to be seen to be doing.
Good afternoon and welcome to our Market House on this great occasion. For a great occasion for our town and for our Market House. My name is Willie Willoughby. My family have been living in the Gorey area for the best part of 300 years. I am a very proud Gorey man. My own connection with this building goes back over 50 years. I was involved in putting a new roof here on this building in the 1970s. Mr. Tom McNulty was the local engineer in charge. And by the way, this building also had a new roof fitted here in 1858. And the contractor for that job was Mr. Ben Webster, who lived where Pettit Supermarket is today on Main Street. I also rented a ground floor unit here in the 1980s for a small DIY shop. I was a member of Gorey Fire Brigade in the late 1960s and early 1970s. When a fire call came in, I would run to the Market House to activate the siren to alert the firemen in the town. And for the past 15 years, I have been taking people on tour of this building. For many, even Gorey people, this would have been their first time ever visiting here. And on school tours, the students were always interested on their visits here. Old buildings which proudly stand in our towns and villages are a fascinating link with the past, and our Market House gives our community a reassuring permanence, a historic value, and evokes an emotional response. With our Market House, we wonder about the lives of all the different people who have walked through its doors over the centuries. This fine building has spent 212 years under British rule, and to date 103 years under Irish rule. Heritage buildings like our Market House have a great value within themselves as part of our history and doesn't need an economic reason to exist. Market houses are notable features of many Irish towns with varying styles of architecture, which makes for a most interesting feature of the streetscape. Many of our market houses have been turned into town halls over the years. Our Market House is as important to the people of Gorey as the GPO is to the people of Ireland, and is the oldest building in Gorey. Our Market House is the heart and soul of our town. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to celebrate 316 years of this fine building, And very soon a chapter will close in the life of our market house. And at this point I would like to go through some of the history of our market house. Let's go back to the late 1690s and early 1700s here in Gorey. There would have been no shops on the main street. Any buildings would have been dwelling houses. All people's needs were supplied from markets on the streets, and there was no organization in these street markets. After some years, it was decided to build market houses in towns. They were in almost every case built by local landlords who saw an opportunity to make money, but they did benefit the tenants as well. There were few market houses built after the Great Famine of 1845. Our market house here in Gorey was built in 1709, which brought some organisation to the street markets. There were stalls inside so people were able to get in out of the weather. Things seemed to be going good, but after a few years there were problems with the markets here in Gorey. Excessive tolls, abuses, and illegal practices. In most cases, it was the rule of the market had more abuse than the weighing of goods. Some traders had two sets of weights, one for buying and another for selling. Poachers used the markets to sell their ill-gotten gains. Our market house is built on our fine main street and backs on to another of Gorey's historic sites, the Market Square Graveyard, which both were once connected. Our market house was built for the Corporation of Newborough, as Gorey was called at this time. The Ram family wanted to change the name from Gorey to Newborough, but the people, so the name was changed back to Gorey in 1780. Gorey was run from here by the corporation until 1825. After this period, the town was run by a board of guardians until 1859, when Gorey Town Commissioners took over. The first chairman was Stephen Ram, who did not attend any of the meetings and resigned the following year. And by 1891, the process of markets had passed largely to the hands of wholesalers and middlemen. So things had changed, and our market house was no longer needed for marketing goods. Our market house was the first to be built in County Wexford, and is one of the oldest in Ireland. On the 27th of August, 1847, a large poster was placed on the outside of this market house saying that the harbour at Corktown was finished and open for business. Our market house holds another piece of history, a benchmark cut into the granite by the British to help with the mapping and levelling in this area. These marks were also called Crow Street. There's one just outside the door as you enter there. Our market house in recent years has two medals on its front. A plaque marking Gorey as the friendliest town for 2017. And a nice heritage plaque put there by the North Wexford Historical Society to mark this fine building. Now let us look to the year 1798, when Ireland rebelled against British rule. This building was 88 years old. Gorey suffered a lot, and most buildings were damaged, and many of its people were killed. This building came through all of this with very little damage. during 1798, the British used this building, and also the Irish rebels. They were toing and froing here during the 1798 period. And it was also used as a jail and a courthouse. Anthony Perry was pitch-capped here. After 1798, Gorey was starting to recover. But 47 years later, in 1845, a great famine arrived in Gorey. But this building was here to help. In 1847, the Gorey workhouse was full and many people were needing help. So this building was used for a place for men from the workhouse to sleep. They were marched down from the workhouse, about 60, and they slept everywhere they could around this building. So it was a great help in that period. Back in the 1820s, the Methodist people here in Gorey had no church. They were allowed to use this building. The Church of Ireland people also used our market house as a school when the upper school was being built around 1840. From about 1918, Miss Elizabeth Nolan from William Street, now McCurtain Street, rented the council chamber here for her dressmaking business, paying 5 shillings a week. Then in 1924, Miss Nolan married James Sanfey on the 3rd of September 1924. At this stage, her and James converted this council chamber into a home. And on the 2nd of October 1929, their son Michael was born right here in this building. So now this great building is providing a home for a Gorey family. Mrs. Sanfey also had a boarding house here, boarding ESB men who were putting up poles for the electrification. The Sanfey family moved out of the market house in 1950 and moved to a new housing estate, number 11, Cluneen, off the Fort Road. I knew Michael Sanfey, who has been here in our market house. Mrs. Ziza Ferguson, who is a committee member of the North Wexford Historical Society, remembers Mrs. Sanfey working here in this market house. A few years after Mrs. Sanfey moved out of this market house, it was renovated, and this large room was made back into a council chamber. And the Gorey Town Commissioners moved back here into the market house, and they stayed here for the next 50 years or so, until they moved to the Civic Centre in May of 2014. The last person to leave this building as a commissioner was Michael George. The end of an era. During the time that Mrs. Sanfey was living in the market house, the Gorey Town Commissioners held their meetings in the old courthouse, near the Garda station, and in the old town hall on the Arklow Road. Gorey Library moved to the market house in 2007, with Kathleen Gleeson as librarian. Gorey's first library was opened in St. Patrick's Club on the main street in 1929. Isaac Funge had an office here. Miss Masterson had a paper shop here. Jimmy Redmond had a butcher's shop here. And also the credit union started her existence here in our market house. And now they've gone on from strength to strength. We have one of the members of the first committee of the credit union here, you see, Tony Wolf. Is Tony still here? Tony, yeah. Well done, Tony. Our market house was also made available in 1998 by Gorey Town Commissioners for a meeting of the Committee of the World Council of Golden Shears when the World Championship of Golden Shears was held here in Gorey. In the 1900s, there was a very successful calf called the Gorey Calf, run by the Duncan family here in this building. The First Lady Commissioner in this house was a Miss Peggy Graham, a school teacher from Arklow. You had a father and son, both became chairpersons, and that was Tom and Joe Flinders. Mrs. Deirdre Bulger was the first female chairperson of Gorey Town Commissioners in 1979. Now let us talk about the architecture of this great building, which is built in the classical style of architecture. It is a 5-bay with a 3-bay projecting central brick front with 5 round-headed openings to the ground floor. These arches would have been open at one time and may have had gates. The front is decorated with a pediment like Leinster House in Dublin. Granite blocks were used to the first floor level. These would have come from County Wicklow. Bricks were then used to the roof level. These bricks would have been made locally. After 316 years, the front facade of our market house is in good condition after all these years. On the roof is a louvered turret, which once held a bell. This bell came from the Aram Church next door in Market Square in 1858. The silver bell, as it was called, was later presented by the Gorey Town Commissioners in 1958 to Father James Green of Gorey, and that bell is now ringing in a church in Nigeria. The bell was fitted here in the Market Square Church in 1736, funded by the Gorey Corporation. This market house also has our town clock. Gorey got a new town clock in 1987, and it replaced the clock which had been out of order for over 40 years. This new clock was christened Little Ben by the late John Sheehan, chairman of Gorey Town Commissioners at that time. Now let us have a look around inside. The architecture is Tudor, with the open roof timbers. The 4 large windows to the front, looking down on our fine main street. In recent years, a lift has been installed so all can visit our market house. The balcony just behind you may have been created for the public to sit in on meetings. Around the walls are photos of past chairpersons of Gorey Town Commissioners, and also a great photograph of Miles Byrne of 1798 just on the wall. There are 2 notice boards that you'll see on the wall, and they are laying out the rules and charges for the buying and selling in the market. And the year they were put up was 1856. Now let us look at this wonderful carpet here in this room. And this carpet was commissioned for the County Hall in Wexford Town in the 1920s. The crest on the carpet representing the four main towns of County Wexford: Gorey, New Ross, Enniscorthy, and Wexford Town. The carpet was made by Evelyn Gleeson. Her firm, Dunn Emer, who was in partnership with the Yates sisters, Susan and Elizabeth, better known as Lily and Lolly. Their brothers, of course, was the great W.B. Yeats, the great Irish poet, and Jack Yeats, the great Irish painter. The partnership also made a carpet for the Dáil Chamber in Leinster House in 1925. Gorey people are very proud of their crest, granted to Bishop Thomas Ram in 1923, and was on display in this chamber over the years. I hope it will be returned here. Our crest consists of a lion, and also a lion, a swan with an eel in its mouth, representing industry. A lion representing fortitude and strength. A rose, unanimity. The people are united. And a cross representing religion. This fine old grandfather clock in the corner, here in the corner, is a Richards clock, made right here in Gorey by Mr. Robert Richards. Mr. Richards had his business at number 80 Main Street, just down the street here, now Jemison's Jewelers. The grandfather clock was bought by Gorey Town Commissioners from the Loretto Convent in 1994. The Richard family were involved in house building in Gorey. They built 7 houses in Wexford Street, known as Castle Street, in the 1840s. Robert Richards had a watchmaking business at number 46 Main Street, now Powers. There are very few Richard clocks left around the Gorey area. This building probably set out the width of our fine Main Street, as the first Ram Palace was on the other side of the street, built in 1610, 100 years before our market house. A great Roman architect defines the 3 elements that make a building great: solidness, usefulness, and beauty. And our market house has all of these and more. We mentioned the style of architecture was in the classical style, influenced by the Greek and ancient Rome. Do you remember lorries setting up outside our market house in the 1950s and 60s, welcoming home Leinster and All-Ireland hurling champions? Thousands of people would turn out to see such men as Art Coley, the Rackard brothers, Nicky and Bobby and Billy Rackard, Jim English, Mick O'Donnell, Tony Dorn, Billy Byrne, Ger Cush. Let us hope that this building will be here for many more years to welcome people to our town. Election rallies were held outside this building for many, many years. The late Ted Kennedy spoke outside the market house in the 1960s. Lord Courthound held a public meeting outside this building on the 3rd of June 1915 to encourage young Gorey men to join the British Army to go to war. Many joined, and sadly a lot never came home. These men were told they would be home by Christmas. A Council of War meeting was held here on the 4th of August in 1914. So you can see that this great building has looked after all the needs of Gorey people down the years, during times of trouble and times of great joy. I have a few extracts from the minute book of Gorey Town Commissioners from the 1860s, meetings held here in the Market House. The first thing was the town was in a filthy condition. Complaints that the chicken market opened too early in the morning, usually in the dark. Mr. Doyle applied for use of the Market House to store potatoes. This was not granted. Other later meetings talking of repairing the roof of Gorey Town Hall on the Arklow Road, 1928. The commissioners invited tenders from the ESB for street lamps in 1929. Another item from the minutes in 1860, the commissioners applied to Mr. Vesey, Ram's agent, for possession of the lower part of the Market House, and it was granted at 2 shillings a year. The council chamber here was stated to be in very bad repair in 1850. So now let us put our Market House in the context of Irish history. This building was here in 1736 when the first Irish newspaper was published. Here in 1741 when famine struck, the year of the Great Frost, when over 400,000 people died in Ireland. At that time we only had 2.5 million people, very low, so very high death rate at that time. Our building was here when Leinster House was built in 1745. Then we had the Rising in 1916, the War of Independence, the Civil War, the birth of our nation in 1922. And through all of this, our Market House has stood tall. Gorey needs this building going forward. A lot of Gorey Town went for auction on the 13th of July 1920, 105 years ago. The leases were being sold by the trustees of the Miller Kirk of Ramsford Park, the owner of the Ram estate at this time. The leases in the town were sold by auction in the rooms of James H. North and Company, 110 Grafton Street, Dublin. There were in 61 lots. Part of this building was on sale on that day. The lease of this large room was sold to Miss Nolan for her dressmaking business here in 1920 at 5 shillings per week. A few years ago, the council allowed people into this Market House to search for ghosts. They cleared everything from the chamber upstairs and set up hearing and imaging devices. These men spent 3 days in the Market House. Some people thought they might come across the ghosts of Hunter Gowan or the Ram family or even some of the Courtown family. I often wonder what the outcome was. After a few years of uncertainty, our Market House, the future is looking good. And now everybody is looking forward to a new chapter opening for this building in the next 2 or 3 years, when our Market House will be made great again. I would like to wish all involved the very best and well done to all. And in conclusion, I would like to thank Philip Knight and Liz Stanley for asking me to be involved in the Great Generation project here at our Market House. Thank you.